Hello and welcome to the Develop Podcast. I'm your host Ben Gilbert, and in this podcast I speak with practitioners from across the world, bringing you insight into the international development sector. In this episode I'm speaking with Violet Ruria. Violet is the Sustainable Livelihoods Advisor for SED UK. Violet is currently working with territories across Africa in developing their water and sanitation programs and has a huge amount of experience, especially in sand dams. So I thought it would be a good idea just to ask her a little bit more about that, about what sand dams are, how they work, and especially how they involve local people. Well, Violet, thank you very much for spending some time with me on this podcast. And it's always great speaking to you because you have such a wealth of knowledge around just the area of water, sanitation, agriculture, and you've worked in this area for many years, and especially with the Salvation Army. So you really understand what it means in the Salvation Army context. Now, one of the things that we've been regularly working on for years now is supporting sand dams.
Thank you, Ben, and always a privilege talking to you and talking about sand dams. But just to begin, a sand dam is simply rainwater harvesting technology. It composes of masonry stone wall that is constructed across seasonal riverbed. And what happens is, as the rain falls, it collects some of the water that is filtered through the sand, and in a way the wall serves as a reservoir. It bars some of the water flowing through the river, and also harvests the sand that could be flown in the river, and that becomes a reservoir that stores water. And within 1 or 4 rainy seasons, the dam fills with the sand, and a single sand dam can store up to 40 million liters of water in a way that can provide safe and clean water to over 1,000 people in a community over years. The beauty about sand dam is that the technology is very simple, it's very low cost, and also low maintenance technology that is used. And it includes the ownership by the community because they are involved in the actual construction of the sand dam. So they participate, they solve their local problem of the need of water together. And in all our sand dam projects, we provide a very holistic, we adopt a very holistic approach where we not only aim to provide water by the construction of the sand dam, but we also work with the communities so that they can adopt some of the climate smart agricultural techniques, like the use of conservation. We work with them to learn some of the skills on how to improve the health of their soil, doing simple things like terracing, ensuring that the soil is covered and mulched so that it is not eroded. We also work with the communities so that they are able to adopt to growing suitable crops. Most of our sand dams are in very arid regions. And in these regions, they receive very low rainfall. So by training the community how to adopt to drought-tolerant crops, which we provide, we also help them to make use of the water that is already provided in the sand dam. They use it to irrigate small gardens where they grow fruits and vegetables for nutrition. They also establish tree nurseries along the riverbeds, and in a way they bring the whole diversity and recreate their riverbed, which has a trickle effect on the whole community environment. We also work with them to promote their economic capacity. We help them establish village loans and saving group where they can save and loan each other, and they can use that money to invest in other pressing issues, like it could be education, it could be buying seeds to grow in their communities. We also work with them to address energy poverty. We know most of the communities where we work, they need a lot of they cut a lot of trees in order to get fuel. So we work with them to address how do they reduce the consumption of the fuel. In a way, how do they start using energy efficient cooking stoves so that they have better health outcomes as they cook within the communities, and also that they can preserve some of the forestry.
It's incredible, actually, because I asked the one question, what is a sand dam? And just in the way that you're explaining, it is so rich in terms of the impact that it has on a whole community. But there's just one thing I wanted to pick up on, Violet, in what you said there. You said that sand dams would normally involve a community and they have real ownership of it. Now, I can imagine that that is a real approach that we take as the Salvation Army, but could you just unpack that a little bit more? What does it mean, and what approach is that where there is actual ownership by the local community?
What we do, we work with communities first to identify the suitable sites where a sand dam can be constructed, and they come together as a community and agree what are we going to provide so that we can realize our dream of solving our water problem. And in most of the arid areas, sand dam is the best methodology to use to access water. And the community comes together. They mobilize themselves to collect all the construction materials that are required, which are locally available. They have lots of sand, lots of stones, and they also look for water, which will be useful for the construction of the sand dam. And what we just provide is the technical expertise, one skilled masonry who works with the community, and the community, literally the young, the old, everyone, men, women, come together and they pick stones and put together to make the reinforced masonry wall. So in a way, they participate with their time. They give their time, they give their local resources that they own, and they also manage. They have a management committee that ensures that everything pertaining to that sand dam is going on well, even after the project, the actual construction of the sand dam exits.
So the construction of the sand dam, assuming that will take a number of weeks or months to actually do, how long will a sand dam typically last if it's looked after by a local management committee formed in the community?
It's been said that most of the research point that a sand dam lasts up to 60 years. And some of the very oldest have lasted up to 100 years. And what happens is, with very low maintenance, as the sand fills up to the wall, the community comes again and raises that wall. So in a way, increasing the capacity of the water that is retained. So in a way, up to 100 years if it's well maintained.
That's amazing. And what about now with climate change, more erratic weather patterns and maybe longer periods of drought, which many of the communities that the Salvation Army is working with is experiencing firsthand? How relevant are sand dams in that fight against climate change?
I think they are very relevant in that they help to conserve the little rain that comes, even if it's seasonally. We find that in most of the communities where we work, that they receive maybe one rainy season, and that has been reducing with the impact of the climate change. And what we encourage by constructing the sand dam, it means that no water goes to waste, because ultimately, when the river flows, it goes up to a dead end where that water is not useful. But if it is retained along as it goes through the riverbed, then it is able to provide for the community. And since we also, alongside the sand dam, construct a shallow well, the community is able to access that water very easily from the shallow well beside the water. And I think the final benefit is that a sand dam helps mitigate against climate change, because the water that is reserved is used to grow things like trees, which we know that the more the forest is enriched, the more trees that we grow, we reduce or we create a good carbon buffer which mitigates against the impact of climate change.
And what about some of the wider impacts? Water is so crucial to life, isn't it? And the access of water impacts the lives of women, of girls in particular, the conflict around water when there's a shortage. So a sand dam coming into a local community and being used well, what are some of the sort of indirect wider impacts which might result because of that sand dam?
Yes, sand dam has lots of trickle impact in the community. We see that by simply constructing a sand dam, the community is assured of an all year round source of water. And it means that women and girls will spend less time trying to access water. If they know that the shallow well has water, then they reduce the time that they would have otherwise used. And that time is invested in productive activities. We have seen education improvement as the communities also learn how to grow nutritious food along the riverbed. We see that they are able to earn some income which can be invested in education needs, like paying school fees. It could be health issues like taking their children to see a doctor, and they have to pay some fees. We also see improvement in health when communities do not have clean water. Then they are vulnerable to all the waterborne diseases, and we see that by simply having a sand dam, the water is filtered through the sand, and then it is accessed through a shallow well, and that water has been researched and found to be very clean and safe for consumption. There is an also aspect of women empowerment, as women are freed to invest in other economic activities. Then they also learn, they increase their income levels, and they also lead a healthier life. In most communities, women have to walk 4 to 6 hours a day, carrying around 20 kilograms of water, either on their head or on their back. And even when they are pregnant, they still have to do some of those chores. And that risks their health, their spinal formation. And also when they are pregnant, it risks them having miscarriage. So in a way, it helps empower the women. It looks at some of the issues that they deal with on a daily basis. And also the Village Saving and Loans Association, which we also include as part of our holistic approach on the sand dam project, enables women to learn leadership skills and decision-making, conflict resolution, and also about saving, financial management. And this all helps the women and empowers them to be better participants in their community.
As always, you can find out more information on our website. Follow the links in the information we've posted on this episode. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Follow and subscribe for news of upcoming episodes. Thanks for listening.